Resolved, the death penalty should be legal in all states. Do you want a serious criminal living in your country, state, or maybe even your town? The death penalty is sentencing people to death for committing serious crimes. Many people strongly agree with the idea of the death penalty. My team and I agree with using the death penalty. There's many situations where using it could be very necessary. The death penalty makes citizens aware of what consequences they could face if they commit a serious crime. According to the New York Times, during the 21st century, there were 26% more executions in the U.S. During the same period, murder rate decreased by 24%. This obviously shows that the death penalty decreases crime rates because people are aware of what could happen to them when they get themselves into trouble. In the long run, the death penalty could be good for the U.S. because crime rates will eventually begin to drop. Also, why should people who commit crimes as bad as killing innocent people get to live any longer? Based on my experience hearing about the shooting at the theater in Colorado, me and many other people were upset to hear about the 12 people that died and the 70 people injured. That's 12 innocent moviegoers killed and many more injured just because a guy decided to shoot up a movie theater. Imagine how their families felt. The point that I'm trying to make here is that crimes like killing innocent people should always require a severe punishment. These killers traumatize and hurt many, and they shouldn't get to continue living when the people they have killed don't get to live another day. As stated by Buffalo News, instead of using the death penalty, we should be looking into the future in which they forego the death penalty in favor of life in prison. But I disagree with this because what is the difference between being sentenced to life in prison and being sentenced to the death penalty? With life in prison, you're sitting in a jail cell with no purpose. You're never getting out because of the crime that you committed, so what's the point? Sure, the difference is with one you're being put to death and one you aren't, but how is either of them better over the other? Think about it. Would you want to spend the rest of your life in prison, or would you rather just be sentenced to the death penalty and get it over with? Many people are looking at the negative parts of the death penalty, but just stop and think about what the positives of the death penalty could be. Overall, the death penalty would be used to make our country a better and safer place for everybody. Would you rather live knowing there are serious criminals out there, or live knowing that the worst criminals are gone?
My opponent has said that the murders, if somebody's murdered and they go to jail, those families and the death penalty is inflicted on them, that those families will never get to see him again, and that they will feel horrible too. But the murderer, if he was the one that murdered somebody, those families will never get to talk to them, never see him or ever again. So why should he be able to breathe and laugh and have fun with their families? My opponent may say that killing murderers is no better, but we disagree. Because if you have killed, if you have a murderer, if you get rid of a murderer, then less lives would be lost because they have no chance to be able to kill any more people. Therefore, killing a murderer would save some lives. My opponent also said that having a condition and they would not know what they're doing, but that would be no excuse to kill somebody. You can't just go out just because you have a condition, which if you do, you're probably being watched over, and that they would go out and kill somebody. My opponent could say that there could be discrimination in the death penalty, but based off their research in the Death Penalty Information Center, it states that over half the people executed were white. 56% were white, 34 were black, 8 were Hispanic, and 2 were the other. Therefore, there isn't any discrimination involved in the death penalty.
My opponent said that, Victoria said that the death penalty does violate the 8th Amendment. She also said we said something about gas chambers, which we didn't. We said that the person died from lethal drugs, not a gas chamber. And also, my opponents also have said that the death penalty brings justice to others, but what about the other families? So, what I'm trying to say is that the person that committed the crime, they get sentenced to the death penalty. All right, what about that person's families and friends? How would they feel? Might as well just send them to jail, send their families and friends will feel better because he's not dead.
My opponents have said that people would feel safer if a serious criminal was dead, but I disagree, because they could be locked up in prison and couldn't hurt anyone there anyway. Therefore, taking a person's life is not the only way to make somebody feel safer. My teammates and I have previously explained that the death penalty should be illegal in every state. Because an Ohio inmate was gasping for air for 25 minutes before finally passing away, it clearly violates the Eighth Amendment by being a cruel and unusual punishment. Also, the FBI forensic experts may have mistakenly linked 27 defendants to crimes they didn't commit. These people could have actually been innocent, and once you take their lives, they can't come back. Finally, the person who supposedly committed the crime could have some sort of condition that caused them to be unsure of what they were doing. It'd be much better to find help for that person than to cause the accused person's family grief by taking their life also. Along with what was already mentioned, we would also like to point out the death penalty is too severe of a punishment. In the words of Pope John Paul II, punishment should offer the offender an incentive and help to change his or her behavior and be rehabilitated. The accused person should be given the opportunity to become a better person. Spending a long time in prison and seeking help from a professional would be better than taking someone's life and would help them to change their negative mindset. Also, according to the American Civil Liberties Union, life without parole provides swift, severe, and certain punishment. This form of punishment would be severe enough to punish the offender, and it will guarantee that no innocent person loses their life. They also stated that the death penalty costs more, delivers less, and puts innocent lives at risk. Clearly, other alternatives are a better form of punishment than the death penalty. The death penalty may never become illegal, but we can only hope it does. Years in prison can transform a person's life in a positive way, and although they can't bring someone back to life if they have committed murder, they can still begin to lead a better life and try to make up for their mistake. Therefore, until the death penalty becomes illegal everywhere, innocent people's lives will continue being taken, and the person who committed the crime will never have the chance to live a better life. Wouldn't using the death penalty on someone make you just as bad as the person who committed the murder?
My opponents have said that death penalty should be used for terrible crimes such as murder, but when there are rapists around that rape people, we send them to jail and we don't rape them. So why should you murder someone who has murdered another person instead of sending them to jail? So that you're just killing off another person in the U.S., decreasing our population. And another example would be that we don't burn arsonists' house down when they burn other people's houses down. We send them to jail. So why kill people for no reason? Just send them to jail. So therefore, we should not use the death penalty for someone who has committed a heinous crime.
You're sitting in prison wondering if you're going to be executed for something you didn't do. Kirk Bloodworth said, "I spent 9 years in prison wondering if I'd be executed for a crime I did not commit." The accused person could be innocent, and as stated by the Washington newspaper, as many as 27 death penalty convictions in the FBI forensic experts may have mistakenly linked defendants to crimes with exaggerated scientific testimony, U.S. officials said. Along with this, the Tribune News Service states that there was a 9-year-old girl named Dawn Hamilton raped and murdered. Kirk Bloodworth's community in Maryland was devastated and needed someone to blame. And he stated, "So the district attorney's office built a capital case against me based on a few flimsy pieces of so-called evidence. Thankfully, Kirk got released for something he did not do. This obviously shows that when people are put to the death penalty, they might be innocent. Since 1976, there has been 142 innocent people who were saved in some last minute before being put to death for no reason. The death penalty should be illegal because once you execute an innocent person, you cannot bring them back. Along with 27 other people that I mentioned earlier, many other people could be innocent as well. Death penalty breaks the Eighth Amendment, and according to the Christian Science newspaper, an inmate from Ohio struggled for almost 25 minutes. He was gasping for air while waiting to die from the legal injection given. The Eighth Amendment states that no cruel and unusual punishment should be inflicted. This is breaking the Eighth Amendment because struggling and gasping for air while waiting to die is clearly a cruel way to pass. The
person that committed the crime may not have known what they were doing. They could have mentally and/or physical problems that they do not know how to control. If they do have these problems, they should be given time to be helped so they can learn how to control their own personal thoughts. Therefore, it is wrong to put people to the death penalty because it breaks the Eighth Amendment. The person could be innocent and the person might not know what they were doing. How would you feel to be sentenced to the death penalty?
My opponent has said that they could be killing innocent people, but we disagree because the government doesn't go out and find one piece of evidence and the next day inflicts the death penalty. The government finds a lot of evidence and fingerprints that they look over years at a time that state who did it. It's not like they go out, say, you did it, and then the next day kills the person. So, therefore, the government would not be killing innocent people over the death penalty.
My opponent has said that it is breaking the Eighth Amendment for no cruel or unusual punishments, and she was talking about the gas chambers. But they have taken away the gas chambers for the death penalty because it was too cruel and people were getting too hurt. My teammates and I have been arguing how the death penalty should be legal in every state, and we have many claims to back it up. One of them is that it keeps people from doing crime. According to Stanford.edu, in the past 6 years, the death penalty has deterred 3 to 18 homicides in every state that the death penalty is legal. We have also argued that some criminals don't deserve to live. Chloe has already mentioned how we have been mourning the deaths of the 12 innocent moviegoers, along with 70 injuries at the Dark Knight Rises in the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. We would also like to point out how the death penalty brings justice to families and surviving victims of the crime. I found a personal experience on debate.org. This person's father was drinking coffee in a coffee shop when a stranger he has never seen before came up behind him and slit him in the throat. He says that he and his family feel a slap in the face every day that the murderer lives and his father does not. My other research from listverse.org also told me that families and surviving victims feel no justice if a murderer only gets a lifetime in jail, and the only way for them to feel justice is for death of the murderer, also known as the death penalty. My team and I believe that the death penalty will bring down murder and crime rate, bring justice to families and surviving victims of the crime, and we have also argued that some criminals don't deserve to live. Imagine, if you will, your 14-year-old friend walking home from school, getting lured into a car by two 19-year-old acquaintances, getting beat with a chisel, then getting a cloth shoved down his throat, left to suffocate. They would then dump his mutilated body. Well, this actually happened. It was the case of Leopold and Loeb. They pleaded guilty by reason of insanity to avoid the death penalty. They were only sentenced to 99 years in prison, and one only served 37 years. He was let out of prison, he got married, and he moved to Puerto Rico. Think about how you would feel if you were